Hi, today I have the distinct pleasure of spending a bit of time with Melissa Burke, an associate professor in our department. As you can see, Melissa and I decided to represent the earth sciences today by both wearing our flannel shirts. Welcome, Melissa. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
So, why don't we start? Why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and the likes?
Yeah, so I did my undergraduate degree at Oberlin College. I knew I wanted to be a geologist. I was one of the very few types of people that actually went to school knowing that I was really interested in geology. But I didn't know what kind of stuff I wanted to study. And so did my undergraduate degree at a small liberal arts. Then I did a master's degree at the University of California, Riverside, in something completely different. So I started to kind of get into geochemistry, just a little bit about what I do now. And then I thought I would kind of try and figure out what exactly I was interested in. So I went and worked at the U.S. Geological Survey for 3 years after my master's degree. And that's where I got interested in reconstructing past climate and past environmental change. And so for 3 years I looked at sediments from lakes and from rivers, part of the USGS kind of plan at that time. And from there I then went to do a PhD at the University of Minnesota. And so I kind of continued that research in past climate and past environmental change, doing my PhD there, and then finished up prior to coming here by doing a postdoc at the University of Utah. And then there I actually worked with biologists. So I thought, it's a very interdisciplinary field, and I wanted to kind of introduce some new tools into my toolkit. So
Very cool. So, for those of us who don't have a deep understanding of this, can you just give us a quick overview of what your research entails and what you're trying to really address and figure out?
Yeah, so I am really interested in studying past climate and past environmental change. And I do that by reconstructing kind of how the environment, how climate change using organic geochemical markers that get preserved in the sediments. And so these are like small chemical fossils that get produced, by aquatic animals or by trees on the landscape or kind of any of the processes kind of going on, and then kind of eventually settle into the mud. And so all of these things kind of aggregate, right, give you a big complicated mixture that ends up in the sediments that either get lithified, right, turn into rocks, or we go and try and recover them beforehand. So my group takes expeditions recovering sediments from lakes and oceans, or soils sometime, to reconstruct that geochemical signature which tells us something about past climate and past environmental change.
So this is every child's dream, right? You get to play in the mud is what
I
you're
do.
saying.
I actually played in the mud as a child. Who knew that it would become my career? I think much to the surprise of my parents. And so, and also I thought I was interested in fossils as a kid, really interested in fossils. And when I went to start my master's degree, it was a place that was actually very good at researching, body fossils like we're all used to. And that's when I realized, that was probably not for me. So it actually took getting exposed to that to realize, perhaps some other aspect of this sort of research is for me.
That's amazing. And so you're looking at these kind of very trace amounts of these things, which is why, for example, when a construction crew comes in and is replacing PVC flooring or whatever it might be, it actually has the potential to mess up your measurements, right?
Yeah, so the exact sort of thing that we are studying, right, these carbons and hydrogens linked together that, make up the kind of basis of all life, is exactly what's found in old plastic as well, and oil deposits and things like that. So we are kind of very acutely aware of contamination, both from kind of each person that comes into the laboratory as well as the things going on in the building. So I'm the pain that worries about contamination.
That's literally wild to me. And anyway, it's cool to know that there are people looking at that kind of thing. So if my calculations are right, you've been with us here for about a decade now, right?
Again, yep. Time flies.
And I've been here just a little bit longer, but the department has shifted and changed a great deal during that time. If I put you on the spot and I said to you, what's your favorite thing about our department, what would you say that is?
That PVC flooring that they're taking out. No. So I actually really like the people, right? I mean, I'm sure, it's very cliche to say, but I've been doing a lot of traveling recently, and people ask, why Notre Dame? Why the Midwest? Why your department? And I will always say that I actually really like the collaborations that are facilitated here. And the fact that, the school is very open to letting you kind of, get done the research that you're interested in getting done. And so I like the conversations that I have with people. People get along here. There's none of those kind of terrible people in the department that kind of stand in other people's way. And so, yeah, it's a people-driven enterprise, it feels like. So
Yeah, no, I personally would agree with that. It's the reason I've stayed here as long as I have, so it's definitely a nice feature. So, I mean, you knew you wanted to be a geologist, you had all of those things, but let's say we can invent a time machine, right, and we can go back and we can have a chat with 22-year-old Melissa. Any life advice you'd give her?
I don't know. I try and live by the motto not to regret anything, right? So, now knowing that things quote unquote work out, right, that I get a job, it's easy to tell past Melissa, like, yeah, maybe take a break more, maybe like leave the library and, go hang out with your friends more, because, I was definitely the nerd in the library. But of course, like, everything that you did in the past is what led to today. So, I don't know, I would say just maybe don't doubt yourself as much as you do. So.
Okay, I think that's very good advice. Okay, let's shift a little bit and learn about you personally. What do you do for fun?
Yeah, so I like to hang out with people. So like hanging out with friends, like having a drink, watching movies, playing games, that sort of thing. Like to go to a lot of live music is kind of a pastime. I like to hike. Backpacking is really one of my major hobbies.
Where do you do that around here?
Yeah, it's a tough question. So actually we go north pretty often. Okay. So you can go south, right? West Virginia has really beautiful country that I'm looking forward to exploring. But for the most part, we've headed up to the UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is absolutely gorgeous. It's peak fall colors right now. But yeah, also trips out west, some of the fall or spring field trips have gone to places that I've backpacked in, have been amazing. What else do I do for fun? Yeah, I don't know. I just, I like to cook, I guess, listen to music, yeah. So.
Well, in terms of music, I mean, what kind of music do you like? I mean, I know your husband is a cellist, but I imagine that your music taste is richer than that.
Much to his chagrin, I listen to like no classical music at home. So we'll listen to pretty much everything. Except maybe super hardcore country. But I listen to rap. I listen to pop. A lot of classic rock. Pretty much all over the board. So. Any
particular song that when your energies are low that you're like, I need to hear this right now?
No, nothing comes to mind. Although thinking about it, like when I was in that kind of my like angsty finishing my PhD phase, I discovered the music of Ani DiFranco, which is kind of like a singer-songwriter that really fit the mood of trying to finish my PhD. So occasionally when I get in that sort of mood, that's what I'll put on. So.
Sounds good. How about books? Are you much of a reader? Any books you'd recommend to anybody right now?
Yeah, I read a whole bunch. So I was on an expedition in January on Lake Victoria where we were doing a geophysical survey, kind of mapping the sediments kind of within the lake. And it's basically this sort of job where it takes every 10 minutes you record some data, then you go back and you have 10 minutes of downtime. And I ended up reading, in a month survey, I ended up reading 5 books. So I basically was borrowing everyone else's books on the cruise, and it was the like most uninterrupted reading time I'd had in a long time. And I thought, man, this is great. But I read some good Toni Morrison while we were on board. I'm trying to think what else I read. I got, while I was in the airport just recently, I got The Tattooist of Auschwitz that I'm, looking forward to and waiting to read and have been wanting to read for a long time. My favorite book as a kid was Gorillas in the Mist, because
For sure.
Yeah, just kind of science lady getting it done. But yeah, I really wish I read more. How about that?
Well, I think that can be said of all of us. No, and I think it's funny you talk about the cruises and the research, because when I did my PhD, I had a lot of friends who went on research cruises, and interestingly, none of them ever came back saying that they read a great deal. But based on what you're describing, perhaps they should have.
Yeah, I mean, it was a small fishing vessel, so there wasn't a lot of place to, sometimes we go on these really big boats that have like, gyms and mess halls and things. This was basically, everything was very self-contained, and it was, 12, 13 adults on a small boat, and so it was like, you know, you sat in the chair collecting data, or you were in your bunk like sleeping, and that was pretty much what we were doing. So there was a lot of time to read.
Sounds like
Yeah.
a dream come true.
Yeah.
I have to say, you describe it so
Yeah.
so attractively.
I mean, it's beautiful, right? Like the sunsets, the sunrises are gorgeous. We got great data, but yeah, being able to read uninterrupted. Well, uninterrupted except for every 10 minutes was pretty nice.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, then, you know, just in terms of this, how about art? Do you like art? Do you have a particular artist you might enjoy?
Yeah, so I was just in Portugal on holiday recently.
My mother's home.
Yeah, and it was gorgeous, and we were in Porto, and there was a is it Modern Museum of Art,
Mm-hmm.
and they had and they have like a pink Art Deco house in the middle, and they had a feature of I'm gonna blank. Is it Miro?
They do have Miro in there.
Yeah, and so there was like this amazing exhibit. You know, these like those really cool. Everyone's seen them, and I never really kind of thought much about. I mean, you always think, oh, they're so cool. These like the mobiles, right,
Yep.
that are perfectly balanced, and they just had a whole series of them. And so it was just a really, really cool, super cool exhibit. So that's probably the coolest thing that I've seen recently. But there's a lot of, I mean, the Chicago Art Museum has just, you know, tons of rotating displays that are really fun to go see, and even the permanent collection's awesome. So, yeah, otherwise, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's a pretty good
Yeah,
answer,
yeah.
I have to say. We've had everything. We've had people say, I don't like art. Yours is probably the most detailed we've had so far. It's wonderful.
Afterwards, you'll have to tell me who said they don't like art.
You know, they don't appreciate art, I
Okay,
think was the
yeah.
main thing.
Yeah.
No, and Miro is somebody who stands out to me a lot because, you know, I did my postdoc in Barcelona and there's a lot of Miro sculptures around the city, so I can definitely see that. Well, Melissa, thanks for everything. Do you have any last comments that you'd like to leave with or the likes?
No, I think it's, you know, just to talk about the department, I think it's one of these places that, you know, everyone kind of takes a chance, right? You know, you kind of see like, oh, is this going to be right for me? And everyone I've ever brought here who's come to visit, you know, as visitors or students or collaborators, has always been really impressed when they've left. And so, you know, everyone kind of has their own kind of set of what they're looking for. But for me and for all the kind of people that I've talked to, it seems like a really nice place to be. So.
Well, thank you, Melissa. It's been a true pleasure.
Yep. Thank
You
you.
take care.
Yeah. Thanks.